Hey, pleasant good evening, and welcome to this version of Breaking Out of Depression. We are so glad that we can come together at this moment and share some wonderful, valuable content, information with regards to how we can deal with all manners of depression, anxiety, withdrawal, burnout, you name it. And while we don't like for people to have to deal with these situations and these conditions, they are real, they do exist. And hence the reason why we thought it extremely important to put together a community that would be able to provide you with the necessary information, the content, the enlightenment that would give you the opportunity to understand how this works with regards to how we can manage ourselves, how we can deal with the negative aspects of depression in many ways, and also how we can help others who may be struggling with some level of depression one way or the other to deal with it as well. Good evening, Gracie Vincent. Thank you for your greeting and your continued commitment. You are probably the most faithful of all members of the audience we have by virtue of your communication. We thank you for being here. Let me say before I get into a word of prayer that I may not have my co host, Brother Wendell, with us this evening because of some challenges that he has on his side that he has to deal with it. But I know his heart and his spirit is with us, even though he's not here physically in the studio with us on this particular episode. In addition, we are supposed to have a guest coming on at 7 p.m. So this is going to be an interesting and value packed episode with regards to all levels of depression. And her main focus is going to be on the empowerment of thought, the process of power thinking, and how we can create the opportunities for ourselves to engage in thoughts that would bring hope, life, health, prosperity, peace, joy, and all the good things that we can think about, the virtuous stuff that we need to help us to overcome all manners of depression. And as well, from her book, she's probably going to speak about three aspects of how a family can overcome dysfunctionality and get away from the negative aspects of depression. So, for the next half an hour or so, or less, I should say, we are going to have a little conversation. And I want to put in the chat two words that I want Brother Dexter to share with you on the chat. The first one is neuroplasticity, and the second one is neurotransmitters. Don't worry about the fact that you probably have not heard these words before. There's a significant meaning and a reason why I am sharing this information with us on this episode. There's also a short video I want to play, should be about 3.5 minutes or so. Hope to get that in with you as well. So, before we continue any further, let's go to God in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for life, spirit, health, and strength, and the opportunity to live and move and have our being. As we humbly come before you, as we approach your throne of mercy and grace, we thank you that your mercies are new every morning and that your grace is abundantly sufficient to sustain us and to keep us in your arms. We thank you for Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, the great I am. And we thank you, God, for that sacrifice he made on the cross of Calvary and the fact that on the third day he rose again from the dead, triumphant and victorious. And because of those acts, we too can have the opportunity to be triumphant and victorious over all challenges that may come our way in this life. And so, as we convene on this episode, on this program, we pray, God, that whatever we do would go forward with a spirit of hope, with a spirit of enlightenment, and that your people would get the information that is necessary for their personal growth and development in their lives, as well as in all aspects of depression, as is the main topic. We thank you for all those who have worked in the background and will continue to work with us so that this episode and all episodes after this would continue to come forth with much power and authority in the name of Jesus. So we give you thanks, we give you praise, honor, and glory. And we thank you for this opportunity to serve at this level. In Jesus' name we pray with thanksgiving. Amen. So, as we continue, I'd like very much to look at the aspect of understanding the two terms that I placed in the chat. As I said, the first one is neuroplasticity, and the second one is neurotransmitters. I want to first deal with neuroplasticity, and let me explain that term for you, and you'll understand why it is extremely important. You must be familiar with a rubber band. A rubber band has a particular level of elasticity, meaning that it could stretch to a certain extent depending on the size and the quality of the rubber band. Yes? And the reason why I'm pointing out that is because I want us to understand that our brain has the same capacity to expand and to stretch into different areas where it has never been before, or it has not been introduced to, or it is not accustomed to. And that is extremely important for us to understand. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is because there are some people that feel that they are stuck in certain situations and certain conditions, and they do not have the mindset, the mental aptitude to get out of those situations. But the studies of neuroplasticity has shown that with all human brain, there is a huge possibility that even though we have been accustomed to something for a very long time, the human brain has the capacity, the ability to adapt, to stretch, and to welcome change. And that study is called neuroplasticity. It is the ability of the mind that is situated in the brain to accept changes and to realize that there can be new things, new areas, new opportunities, new ways or avenues to explore and to exploit and to come up with new ideas and new solutions. If we did not have that ability mentally, if we did not have that ability or that capacity mentally, there will not have been any signs of improvement or any newfound discoveries existing in our world. And so we need that ability. We need to understand that we can also find a way to implement that ability in our lives for our personal development as an individual. You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be a chief accountant. You don't have to be a CEO of a massive corporation. But anyone who can understand this simple process of how they can use their mind to adapt to change and to accept new things that are, of course, better for them or in their best interest, that the brain has the ability to do that. And it is called neuroplasticity. Now, let me explain to you why this is extremely important. We are basically creatures of habits. We love doing the same thing over and over again, and sometimes we love saying the same thing over and over again. We love to drink the same brand of coffee in the same cup. If we go to our favorite restaurant, we want to sit in the same place almost all the time. Even when we go to church, we want to sit in the same pew with the same people. And so we like the same of almost everything that makes us feel comfortable. And that is why we are creatures of habit. Now, as I said before, there may be things in our lives that we have been dealing with for a long time, and it is somewhere in our subconscious. When I speak about the subconscious now, I want to go over to the neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters are tiny nerve cells that take the information that we need to make decisions with and transfers that information to the brain. Studies have shown that there are over 68 billion neurotransmitters alone in the human brain. Hence the reason why it is said that only about 2 or 3% of the people in the world use more than 2% of their brain capacity. So you understand the contrast, you understand the paradox there. And here's the thing about it. Sometimes we feel that we have been involved in something for so long that it's hard to change, it's hard to adapt. That is just a feeling. That is just an emotion. The brain itself, if we train it enough, has the ability to adapt to any level of change that we need to make the difference in our lives. And hence the reason why one of my favorite scriptures speaks about transformation by the renewing of the mind. Romans 12 and verse 2. It says, be not conformed to the things of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Meaning to say, what you used to think about before and the way you used to go about doing things, it's going to change. Why? Transformation by the renewing of the mind must take place. Now, in order for that transformation to take place, it means to say that you have to feed certain things now into your subconscious that you were not feeding before. Oh boy. So now, as a being that understands that you are made up of body, spirit, and soul, you understand that as a Christian, first of all, when you became saved, your spirit was saved and connected with the Spirit of God. Plain and simple. Secondly, our souls now are in the process of being continually saved. Because the minute we step outside of the comfort zone of our Christianity in terms of falling short of the glory of God or sinning, our souls are tainted. And so it requires of us a consistent, daily, persistent, habitual, and also discipline and intentional commitment to feed into our subconscious via the neurotransmitters the things that are from the spirit realm, including prayer, fellowship with those that are in Christ, and the reading and the studying of God's words, and the process of neuroplasticity will take place. So what I'm doing there is I'm combining the spiritual aspect together with the scientific aspect. So we have a holistic understanding of how these two work together to help us develop ourselves and to grow in our mindset as individuals. So what I'm saying is simply this. What you feed into your system through your neurotransmitters with regards to the things that you desire to create the values that make up your life, that consist of your character and your mannerisms, and the level of consciousness you have as towards the decisions that you're going to make about the things that matters in your life and that of other people. If what you put into your subconscious has that spiritual foundation, that good moral and ethical, valuable foundation, in time, that transformation is going to take place because the brain now is able to accept the fact that this is the information that I'm being fed and it will gravitate to it by default. Now, here is the challenge. If you have been doing something that is a habit and it was a bad habit, something that was not in your best interest, and let me keep it real, let me keep it practical. You were someone who loved to take your drinks, whether it be morning, noon, or whatever time it was, celebration or lime or just relaxation time, I don't know, but you just like to take your drinks. And then ever so often you would take a smoke. Or maybe you love to gamble and take chances with your monies. I don't know. But consider this, that there's a habit that you have or had in the past, and your brain has become now attuned and accustomed to that habit. So what you have is something that is called muscle memory. It will always remember how you felt with regards to the presence of the alcohol, the gambling, or the drinking, or the smoking. Understand what I'm saying? It's very simple. And so when the time comes that you decide you're no longer going to imbibe the alcohol, you're no longer going to smoke, or you're no longer going to gamble, what you're doing is you're telling your brain that which you are accustomed to, you now have to find a new way to get accustomed to something else. But if you did not take the time to replace those habits with something else, to fill up the space, to fill up the gap, by default, that habit that you were struggling with, it will continue to plague you because of the fact that the neurotransmitters are accustomed to that feeling. And when the time comes that you deny it of that feeling, your neurotransmitters in your brain will seek to find that feeling. If you did not replace it with something else, and I said spiritual, moral, ethical, things of good virtue with regards to your nature now, your new nature, from a spiritual perspective, if you did not replace any of those habits into that real estate in your mind, by default, your neurotransmitters are going to lead you back to that place where you were before, because that is what you have trained it to become accustomed to. Now, the process of that change, as I told you before, is called neuroplasticity. And to understand that, it means to say then that if you understand how that process works, you will not leave any gaps. You will not leave any space in your mind for the things that you struggled with
Moment.
in the
Okay,
past
he's right back.
to have the opportunity to interfere with the things now that you need to do, because you have changed your mindset about your life. And now you're seeking to go forward. You're seeking to go forward with things that are new, things that are of good nature, good virtue, good value, spiritual things, which you were really created for more than anything else. And that's what we have to understand. We are spirit beings having a physical bodily experience on planet Earth. But our main subject with regards to the kind of characteristics and mannerisms that we put out there is our spirit. And so what we feed into our spirit through our neurotransmitters has the ability to take the mind to a place of expansion where it will now receive the opportunity for transformation to take place. But it must be done intentionally. If we are not intentional about it, the mind itself, through those neurotransmitters, will seek to go back from whence we came. And then we're going to have a problem. So, to support what I just spoke to you, I want to share a short video with you of a survey and a study that was done by Yale University with regards to the effects of depression on those neurotransmitters. And I hope that I can set it up. So let me see if I can put it in play for us, because it is important for us to understand how these things make a difference in our lives. So stand by as I share this video, and let us see if we can enhance the meaning.
The current standard of care for the treatment of depression is based on what we call the monoamine deficiency hypothesis, essentially presuming that one of three neurotransmitters in the brain is deficient or underactive.
Neurotransmitters can be thought of as the chemical messengers within the brain. It's what helps one cell in the brain communicate with another to pass that message along.
But the reality is there are more than 100 neurotransmitters in the brain and billions of connections between neurons. So we know that that's a limited hypothesis.
For decades, we thought that the primary pathology, the primary cause of depression was some abnormality in these neurotransmitters, specifically serotonin or norepinephrine. However, norepinephrine and serotonin did not seem to be able to account for the symptoms of depression in people who had major depression. Instead, the chemical messengers between the nerve cells in the higher centers of the brain involved in regulating mood and emotion, which include glutamate and GABA, were possibilities as alternatives. We know that these two, which are the most ubiquitous and abundant neurotransmitters in the brain, actually regulate how the brain is changing over time and adapting. When you are exposed to severe and chronic stress, like people experience when they have depression, you lose some of the connections between the nerve cells. And the communication in these circuits becomes inefficient and noisy. Because of the noisy communication in the circuits involved in regulating mood and emotion, we think that the loss of these synaptic connections contributes to the biology of depression. It's critical to understand the neurobiology of depression and how the brain plays a role in that for two main reasons. One, it helps us understand how the disease develops and progresses, and we can start to target treatments based on that.
There are clear differences between a healthy brain and a depressed brain. And the exciting thing is when you treat that depression effectively, the brain goes back to looking like a healthy brain.
We recognize that the treatment for depression is a long-term process because for many people, depression is a long-term disorder. So we need new treatments. We've needed new ways to approach depression for people that haven't responded well to their prior treatments.
We are in a new era of psychiatry. This is a paradigm shift away from a model of monoaminergic deficiency to a fuller understanding of the brain as a complex neurochemical organ.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to share that piece of study done by Yale University for us to understand how crucially important it is to have at least some basic knowledge of the scientific aspect of how the brain works through the process of neuroplasticity and neurotransmitters. For many people who have had the negative experience of dealing with depression, sometimes the treatment, even though it is ongoing or done on a regular basis, if those neurotransmitters are not given the opportunity to heal and to get to a place where they can function better, therefore what happens is that the recovery from the condition of depression can take longer. And that is why it is necessarily important for folks to recognize in the early stages where someone is seeing signs of depression coming on, it is when one should take the opportunity to get help, to seek advice. Staying quiet is not going to help. We need to be able to access the right information that would give us the opportunity to do something proactively about a condition which we do not understand, which is new to us, but that can prove to be a challenge later on as we seek to understand what is going on with our human body. And it starts with the brain. Everything starts and ends in the brain. The decisions that we make, all the emotions, all the feelings, everything, the brain is the epicenter of it all and is responsible through the neurotransmitters for the information that comes and goes. How we manage it is extremely important. So I see our guest is here, and I hope that what I've shared with us so far has given us the opportunity to understand how important that we mix the spiritual as well as the scientific aspects of depression together so that we have a holistic understanding of how we can deal with it in these different stages. So let me introduce our guest properly. She is, wow, an ambassador of life empowerment, a global top-selling author, a new thought creator, and an energy alignment coach and a Zelo corporate coach. And her name is Laura Brennan Bale. She's the author of The Science of Empowerment. Welcome to Breaking Out of Depression, Laura. How are you?
Hi, Andy. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, and it is indeed a great pleasure to have you. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join with us. And
Of
so,
course.
Laura, first of all, yeah, wonderful. First of all, I want you to explain to our audience your area of expertise and how it aligns what we are trying to do here on breaking out of depression, just for a couple minutes or so.
Yes, thank you. Well, for me, energy is the only way to move through this human condition. And I know that we all face very unique challenges. And depression, I truly believe all of us at some point in our life have tapped into that experience. And I have learned to take challenges on through the lens of neuroenergy, which is what you were talking about: mind, body, spirit, connectivity. And when we begin to look at these aspects as a whole being and not separate, we start to have a better understanding that we have the potential to not only heal ourselves, but to really move through these patterns of depression, just like patterns and habits and behaviors that we experience in many other ways. Now, of course, you always want to acknowledge, medical treatment and professional treatment when you really are experiencing full on depression, because there can be physical conditions that also can be affected by that. But I would say that for people who are going through, just kind of that feeling that something's off, and we wake up and we're melancholy and we tend to be just not our fully engaged, happy selves, that through thought, through biology, through proper nutrition, through exercise, through awareness to different modalities, we can maybe start to lift some of the weight off of us around depression.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Laura. That's a wonderful way of putting it over. I couldn't do it better
Mm.
myself. I just want to remind the audience that the opportunity for you to ask questions of Laura or to make comments are open, and she will be willing to respond as we go through the show with her level of expertise. So, as we continue, Laura, I want to touch on something that I saw in your information, and it has a lot to do with the elevating of a mindset to
Mm.
come from a place where we have little or no control over our thoughts to a place where we gain some level of ascendancy. And now,
Yeah.
because of some basic techniques, we can better control our ability to decide which thoughts we want to think and how we can become more empowered when we get to that place. Tell us a bit about that. How can we do that?
Yes. Again, this is really about tuning in, tapping into human potential. And regardless of what our stories are and how we grew up and all of the hardships and difficulties that many of us have gone through, what I ask is that you suspend that story for a moment. Put all of the shame, the guilt, the blame, the sadness, the depression, all of these emotions, just suspend them and move into the power seat of choice. Exercise your authority of learning how to think through positive intelligence and change the way you actually are experiencing something in your life. This is by no means to say, if again you are diagnosed with a specific depression, of course there's therapy and counseling and there's medication, both through, pharmaceutical as well as very natural, beautiful healing remedies. So I don't want to just gloss over the sometimes a very serious nature of really true depression, but we're talking about maybe speaking on the level where someone again has like a more mild case of depression. You absolutely can use thought to move yourself through to a more mm, clearer understanding of your capabilities. And we can do this when we use the J3 equals E, which is at the foundation of the science of empowerment. These are 5 very simple but absolutely empowering principles that you can ask yourself when you are in that state. You can say to yourself, where is my awareness? And you may come out with, I'm depressed. Now, your second principle, willingness. What am I willing to do in this moment of that awareness that I've been in this constant state of depression? So that could be starting to eat differently. That can be taking a walk, connecting in nature, writing in a journal, meditating, getting a life coach, reaching out to a pastor or a friend. Now we go into the third principle, accountability. How long do you want to marry yourself to this story that's keeping you in this consistent pattern of depression? You and only you are accountable to start to take in new information through podcasts, through radio shows, books, library. We have Google, right? We can Google anything. There's so much help for us out here now. So when we take accountability and we begin to understand that I alone can make the decision, right? I can put myself in the power seat of choice. I can make a decision to begin to elevate my experience out of this depression. I'm not saying it's going to be just so beautifully and smooth and perfect, but you absolutely can change the way you think about the state of where you are, your frequency, your mind thought process, and again, the biology of your body, what you're feeding in, what are you listening to, what are you watching? All of these things can contribute to elevating up and out of a state of depression. And now we go into the fourth principle, critical thinking. This is where we take a lot of the emotionality, that emotional charge. Woe is me. This is why I'm depressed. I can't get out of it. There's no way I'm ever going to feel differently. We remove the emotion for a moment and we think through the lens of real critical thinking. Power yourself up to this level of what am I capable of in this moment? If I'm really feeling this down, I absolutely have the polarity to feel this high. It is built into the human condition. We may be lacking the skills, the tools, the mechanisms, but here we go. Now we're listening to something that may absolutely help us tap into our potential to elevate ourselves. Now we go into the fifth principle, energy. We are energy beings. And the moment we start to truly understand how we are filled with energy, negative, positive, neutral. This is part of the beauty of the J3 equals E formula. If you ask yourself, which energy am I? You might say, I'm negative right now. Then you run through that formula and you begin to neutralize the way you're thinking. You begin to settle the pattern that's in your cells because it's so accustomed to the story and the holding pattern of depression that now you understand I can choose neutrality. Maybe I can't go from negative to positive, from depression to happiness, but I can begin to elevate the depth of depression into a more neutralized state. And now maybe I can go for support and help.
Yeah. Wow. That is so much value right there. That is everything in terms of the whole aspect of the mindset that we are supposed to have. And while you were speaking, there are a number of things reached out to me, Laura. But what I want to focus on is some practical issues that may be simple, but yet challenging for some people. And you did mention it in the process. In terms of the things that we can do to shift the paradigm,
Mm.
I spoke about habits earlier, and you speak about meditation, possibly yoga, change of diet,
Yeah.
exercise, take a walk, go in the park, listen to some positive tapes and stuff. But I want to focus on two, Laura, if you don't mind. How important can these two be? And I'm talking about exercise and diet in terms of the kind of nutrition that we need to get to keep that energy up, that positive energy up. How important are these two connected to the process?
I'm going to say that nutrition is by far the most important. What we take in to our body, right? The matrix of what fuels us absolutely has direct effect on how we feel. If we eat something that has a chemical in it, if it's processed, some of this is just obviously very known information out in the world, but it alters our gut biome. We have more gray matter, more brain cells in the gut than we have in our actual brain. Don't ask me to explain all that, but that is science speaking. Our gut houses our energy, our feelings, the sensation. It fluctuates our moods more than we even realize. So if we're eating pizza and drinking, Coke, if we're smoking, if we're over drinking, if we're really not connected to the beauty, and I'm going to say the temple that we are, then we start to infect it. We bring in toxicity and distortion through the way we eat. This also goes over to the shows that we watch, the books and the movies we read and we, view. It goes to the music we listen to. It goes to the practices and our daily routine. This all has a direct effect on our moods. And I promise you, when you start to eat properly, and very
Come
simple
on.
changes, getting rid of, again, Diet Coke, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, all of that style of drinking, the sugar alone and what it does to the brain, you wouldn't even want to take a sip if you really understood how it corrodes certain aspects of the neuronal part of our brain. I would say that more vegetables, of course, and lots of fruits. Now we move into taking accountability for what we are entering into our field, our internal field. And so if we're not very careful, and if we don't practice or master our awareness to what we're doing, the body will absolutely sometimes scream at us, I need a change, I need help. We have one body, right? And if we're not really honoring it and taking care of it, now of course exercise, we have to move. We are energy beings. We vibrate. We have a frequency. This is not spiritual and new sciences. We actually vibrate. We have a way to measure, right, energy in human beings. Now we have been somewhat born and bred to think that we are solid, but we're really not. We just don't have the sensory acuity to understand that we really are movement. We are action all the time. So think about a frequency that is high or low, right? Or maybe of another way to put it for people that understand, like if you have a sports car, a high performance sports car, or a thoroughbred racehorse, you would never feed the car a low octane gas, and you would never feed the thoroughbred horse potato chips and Coke. There's a reason why the output looks the way it does, right? When we see, again, a sports car, we see a thoroughbred racehorse, the muscles, the speed, that focus, that drive. If we can just take a moment to realize that we are a living, breathing, energetic human being that needs care, needs consideration, needs attention. And ask yourself before you ingest anything mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, is this negative, positive, or neutral? Does this add to my elevation and my advancement? Does this make me smarter, stronger? Is it helping me tap into my potential, or is it downgrading my abilities? Is it bringing me down? And even though we can't see our internal mapping system, we all pretty much know what makes us feel good. And so I would say tap into what makes you feel good, not in the moment, eating something out of depression, drinking something out of depression, but ask yourself, is this behavior I'm about to partake in, is this actually elevating my existence, or is it taking me down or keeping me down?
Yeah, yeah. Wow, really powerful stuff there. So I have a comment here by Gracie, and it says, when my son was going his mental problems, I went in a state of depression, cried a lot. But by doing some exercise, which the diabetic support group told me to do, it worked for me. And I did went a diet, but most of all prayers works. Amen. What is
Yeah.
your response to that, Laura? So that's a
So
real experience.
I'm going to say, of course, if our children or our parents or our friends are going through something, the natural outlet is to cry and to express all of these emotions. But as the mom, the caretaker, the guardian of her son, and she's now saying, and others, some part of her connected to her faith. So thank God she had her faith, and prayers are a stream of energy. It, however you want to pray and to whoever you want to pray, it is a beautiful expression of connectivity. Whether you believe in God, you believe in more than one God, whether you believe in universal forces, whether you pray to butterflies, it doesn't matter. It's all a beautiful expression of having faith in something that helps elevate you in a moment of crisis, difficulty, and challenge, where you can gain a moment of strength to then take care of someone that maybe doesn't quite have that ability in place yet. So, I would say that what she did was amazing. And it's important to have connection to faith, to a support group, and to continue moving in that positive direction.
Yeah, appreciate that, Laura. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
There is something that has been on the back of my mind for a while. In my coaching practice, I have studied it as well, maybe not as much as scientific as you have because of your field of expertise, but it is called replacement habits.
Mm,
And I see so many people struggle because, Laura, they get rid of one bad habit that
yeah,
was depressing them, and then they replace it with another bad habit,
yeah,
not realizing that they're actually doing that, thinking to themselves, okay, maybe it's just a replacement for a period of time, and then eventually I'm going to get over it. What I want you to address is, how can people come to a place where they recognize that If you're going to get rid of one bad habit, obviously, which you should, which would be in your best interest, then at the end of the day, how do you replace it with something that is so positive that you don't find yourself embracing something that is replacing it, but at the same time creates another problem and your depression is not really addressed?
Yeah, this is a great question. And for me, I would say when I've worked with clients um, all around the world on this, and a lot of this stems out of relationships. You're in a relationship for whatever length of time, and you break that off, and you get all excited after you've gone through the heartache, and you think I'm going to meet someone new and it's going to be amazing and I'm going to show up differently and they're going to be different and the whole experience is just going to be something magical. And we get into a new relationship and there comes those beautiful issues again, and that cycle repeats itself. I'm going to bring us always back to the J3 equals E. I've done this in my own life. We do this at our neuromuscular training facility with our clients. You have to become aware of your patterns and begin to understand with great compassion that we really become these walking algorithms of someone else's perceptions. So for most of us, it's our grandparents and they pass down to our parents, and then our parents pass down to us. So the language, the patterns, the behaviors, and the habits really do become our personalities. And this is how we cope and we deal through our lives with thinking it's outside of myself. I get a new job, I get a new haircut, I move to a new town, everything will be better. And then there we are, we show up in our new place with our new face or our new clothes. We all understand this. So this really comes down to full on awareness that if I see a repeated pattern, a repeated habit behavior, if I'm feeling the same way over and over again, or at least recognizing there's a pattern in there, that is a beautiful indicator. It's a marker, a universal marker that you have the work to do. And no change, no movement, no other human is going to be able to get inside and do the work. Right? This is an inside job. This is a relationship with self, getting into the reasons why I am this way. And only when we begin to really find this beautiful awareness that I am accountable for what I am experiencing, then we start to make different choices. Now we start to see those warning signs before we get thoroughly involved with the pattern. We start to catch it a lot quicker and we stop it and we recalibrate and we move on. And eventually you will not pull in the pattern again. Not the same thought process, not the same behavior, habit. It will dissolve. But through your awareness, and then you need modalities, skills, tools, a coach. You need support and help to move you through that process, that transformational process. But everyone has the ability to tap into this beautiful genius part of being human and actually evolving to a level where those patterns no longer are disruptive, they are elevating.
Yeah. Wow. I hope that the audience appreciate the level of commitment that you have made to explain it so well in detail, because at the end of the day, what folks must realize is that the whole process is not just ABC 1, 2, 3, but it, as you said, there's a modality that takes place, and we must be able to recognize certain patterns about ourselves and realize, hey, if I am doing this thing, or I'm saying this thing, or I'm thinking this thing over and over and over again, it is coming from a particular place. Where is it coming from? Where's the source of it? And the reason why that is important is because the influence that comes from that helps us to create our characteristics, our mannerisms, and sometimes our responses to things. And sometimes it is just locked in there, automatically we respond.
And
What I
I
want to
would
do is, Yeah.
Oh,
Go
I'm so
ahead.
sorry. I would say
It's
it's
all right.
more of a
Mhm.
reaction, right? It's an
Yeah.
automatic reaction. We're on
Yeah.
autopilot because we're so
Yeah.
emotionally charged by living in the pattern. When we
Mhm.
start to break free from the patterns, we actually have a moment where we have the opportunity to catch our breath, journal, take a physical step back. As we said, exercise, have something good to eat, listen to something that stirs your soul and supports this journey into elevating out of that pattern. Now we get to respond differently. We now get to tap into a new thought process, a new way of being in this interaction. So we no longer are reactive. We actually become more responsive in a positive way. And there's a big difference between reacting and responding.
Yeah. Yeah. There is actually. I appreciate you clearing up that. Thank you so much.
You're
All right.
welcome.
So I wanna I wanna remind those who are on, and we see in our day Paris on. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, my dear sister. That I don't know when Laura is going to be here again. So she has a ton load of valuable information that could help us. Please post your questions and your comments. It does not matter. She will respond and we'll get the enlightenment and the knowledge that we need to continue to deal with all aspects and manners of depression. There's something that I'm excited to ask Laura about, and I hope she doesn't mind. I want to go into some of her writing
Mm.
where she speaks specifically about three aspects of which a family that is experiencing communication problems and dysfunctionality can use to deal with those problems, because that is an area of depression that we see a lot of people suffering from, that families are affected by negatively. And it is not God's will that we see disruption and separation of families. So we need to know there are some areas in which we can address those things. Laura, help us to understand the expertise with regards to those areas. And you said three in particular with regards to the family.
Well, what I'm going to say again, and I do not at all mean to be repetitive, but yes, I do. When we move through the principles, this is how I've helped the family dynamics evolve into a different space by, looking at the pattern of when an argument ensues, when, someone is reacting and then it triggers someone else to react. And then you just have this whole dysfunction going on. So, what I've done with my clients is again, take a moment. I've actually asked them to take a physical step back when they're in a room and things are very heated. Take a physical step back. It creates a break in the reactionary pattern. Catch your breath. And there's one question with three answers, right? Which energy am I in this moment of this interaction? Am I negative? Am I positive? Or am I neutral? And families started to literally take a step back and ask themselves. And then I had them do it out loud, one at a time. Again, we're breaking the cycle by starting to implement more positive intelligence thinking. This allowed them to realize that they each are accountable for the energy that they're placing into the collective experience. Now, sometimes people don't care. I'm negative and deal with it. And then there's lots of anger and resentment and there's all of that stuff. But we work on that, behind the scenes in coaching sessions. But I will tell you, when you are in an interaction within the family dynamics, whoever is in, let's say, the authority position, the growing up in the room, they can just stop for a moment and say, okay, we're all raising our voices. We're screaming at one another. We're crying. We're upset. We're angry. This is not anyone's particular fault. We're all just reacting to a lot of subconscious things that we aren't very clear on or aware on. So, as a mom and a dad, or whoever's again in that position, can say, let's just take a moment and ask each other, can we just for a moment say one thing that's kind? Can we find one thing that we're grateful for about our family or about our home or about how we are together? This begins to truly shift the mindset. Again, I'm not saying it's easy because so many of us are so steadfast in holding on to the anger or the depression or the sadness or the blame or the victim story that we just don't have the full on ability to really recalibrate it. But it can be done, and it's been done thousands of times. So when you find yourself in an interaction and you know that it's going right into a repeat, and for families, this is so important, someone has to be the adult in the room, and someone has to say, okay, take a step back, take a breath, and let's start to dialogue. Can we in this moment find something we're grateful for? Can we in this moment create a different way of being to each other? Can we choose love over the dysfunction? Can we choose love over the pattern? And it may seem simple, but it's important and it's impactful. And this is where change starts.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Gracie Vincent said, preach this. So, and that's encouraging. That's encouraging. We want to see that kind of interaction from the audience so we know that they're getting the message.
Yeah.
You touch on two things there, and I want to look at the subconscious a little bit. But before I go to the subconscious, I want to look at something that I have observed over a period of time, and that is how important it is, Laura, for people to understand the power of being able to forgive someone else. I have seen people hold on to things for years,
Yeah.
and not realize that it was pulling them into a hole of depression. I've seen Christians do it, I've seen non Christians do it, people of all walks of life. And it's a concern because we don't realize how much harm we are doing to ourselves when we keep those things there and we harbor those things that are not good for us. It's not virtuous, it's not healthy, it's not helpful. It can do more harm than good. How do we get people to reach to a place where we help them to realize you have to let it go? If you forgive yourself first, find a way to forgive the person as well
And
that you felt had something or
yes, and
something do to you. Let it go. How do we get them to go to that?
yeah, again, understand through an awareness that when we hold the construct, the matrix of thinking around being a victim, which is kind of the stopping point, right, of forgiveness. If we hold the story tightly, I am a victim. You did this to me, therefore I feel this way. This is why nothing else can be good. We are giving our life away. We are locking ourselves in an absolute prison of limited thinking and giving our power away. Now, in the 21st century, no one should be locked into anything at all. Now, I know that we have a lot of issues in our world, but you and I and people that are listening, we all are trying to add in our own unique way to elevate the collective world. So I promise you, if you let go of whatever that story is, it has nothing to do with the other person. I cannot tell you the countless clients that I have had that have gone through such abuses and neglect and abandonment. And we all know these stories. Many of us have lived through those experiences ourselves. We've counseled, we've coached others, we have friendship and neighbors and people in church. All of it is this. We know what this is. But we also know that when we come across examples of people that forgave the other person or forgave themselves for the holding on to that experience, your cells start to shift. Your mind starts to expand. Your health starts to elevate. You have to please hear what I'm going to say. When we hold on to an experience that was distorted, destructive, damaging, harmful, hurtful, neglectful. Yes, we need to honor that experience. We need to grieve it. We can question it, but by all matter, please let it go. It only blocks you from your beauty, your happiness, your tapping into your potential to do something amazing in this life. It serves no purpose, only to block you from your greatness. And if that doesn't make sense to you, I'm going to say it again, and please hear me. When you hold on to the non-forgiving story, it blocks you and you alone. When you release it, you now free yourself. You hold the key to let that out of the cage. That's how I look at it. And
Yeah.
that's how I talk to my clients. You are locking yourself in. Let yourself go and forgive it. I'm not saying forgive the act. I'm not saying forgive even the emotional imprint of it. I think, that stays with us. What I'm saying is learn to look at it as a mechanism of healing, of strength, of tenacity, of empowerment. Move through it, because your story of letting that go will absolutely help someone else.
Yeah, wonderful. That's a beautiful way of putting it, Laura. That is so priceless. And our producer is saying, I love that. So I know that this is making an impact. Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. This is the kind of information that I believe is pertinent to getting people to a place of empowerment. And that is why it is so important for us to do our research and to understand how practically we can empower ourselves as individuals. And as you rightfully say, Laura, we don't have to be a victim of a past story or condition or circumstance that we felt was unfair to us. But we could learn the lessons that came out of those stories, came out of those conditions, if we only understand that the way we position our mindset is to be past the victim stage and to be a victor. Because in overcoming, that's where the healing process takes place. And when we become better at doing that, we manage ourselves in such a way that the energy that we share with our people is one that is positive, uplifting, endearing, may I dare say loving, and
Yes.
it draws people closer to you in relationships.
And
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
a really,
Yeah.
if I may say, a unique and maybe new perspective on how to look at this. What happens if somewhere, it doesn't matter where it came from, we set these challenges up? Even though I know some, you can think there's no way I would never set something like that for myself, let alone my worst enemy. But what happens if somewhere in our soul's purpose, we set that up so that we absolutely can learn what it is to let it go? There's such power in releasing that emotion. So whether, some people say, well, why would God put this in, my lap? Why would I be exposed to this? Or if it isn't God, you will just say, why me? Why did this happen? And I mean, there's people that have had such tragedy. But if you learn to look at it again as a recalibration mechanism, oh, I see that. Okay. I know what that did. I know how that made me feel. I don't like it, but I can authorize, rewrite, redesign, re-engineer a new story where that will empower me rather than disempower me. So I think sometimes if we can kind of align with this skill set to take life challenges and bring them in to that internal mapping system that I was talking about. How can I grow from this? How can I expand from this? How can I elevate and evolve my life experience, even though something happened that was deeply challenging? How can I use that to be a better human being? And how can I change my thought process around it, therefore my energy field around it, so I now am contributing value out into the world rather than contributing just another sad story?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Laura. We
You're welcome.
appreciate it. Here's the amazing thing about it, Laura. We have so many challenges in the world today. And when we look at life, we see sometimes that there are some people that are just going through the motions.
Mm,
You get up in the morning, you go to work, you come back, and you have these routines that you develop. And sometimes you get, they say, caught in the rut.
yeah. Yep. Whoops. I'm going to hang here for one moment. There you go, because you just froze. So I'm going to carry on.
I
And
was stuck.
oh, there you go.
I'm
Yep,
here.
you just froze for a moment.
It,
In the
it,
rut,
it
you
happens.
froze.
It happens. I appreciate. Yeah, I appreciate. And sometimes, Laura, we get caught up in the rut, and it
Yeah.
takes us down a path. And after a period of 10 years, 15 years, some for 20 years, we realize, oh my gosh, I have lived all this time, but I have not been alive.
Yeah.
I have gone through this process of working and trying to get to a certain place, but there was no fulfillment. So you have
Yeah.
spent all this time, all this energy, and now you have realized that, hey, wait a minute, I didn't really have anything to show for it. And that could be
Mm,
quite depressing. It reminds me of a philosophy of the Dalai Lama, who says that he can't understand why people in the Western world spend most of their life and then when they reach a certain age, they spend most of the wealth trying to achieve health, not
I know.
realizing that their soul was never fulfilled. How do we help people, Laura, to get out of the rut and create a new sense of purpose and positive energy for their lives? What are some of the things that folks can do?
Yeah, this is again, I think this is such a common experience within the human condition. We all know what the routine feels like. So many of us are just getting by, right? You know, a paycheck to paycheck family, the middle class is shrinking, all of those stories that are out there. But again, I'm always bringing it back to the individual. If you at any moment in your life have that train of thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why am I still here? Look the same, feel the same patterns. Nothing is moving. That is your indicator to go deep within and start really answering those questions. There is no one outside of ourselves that has that answer. We have tools that we can offer. We have value of life experience and unique formulas and books and writings and things that we can share. But it always comes down to the individual. I call this, becoming a self actualized human being. I own the power. I have the ability to change it all. Whatever that looks like and however that feels to each person hearing this, you have it. It's in you. Don't doubt it. There have been people who have been in some of the worst, dire straight environments and have absolutely 100% not only turned their life around, but their parents, their grandparents, and the next generation. I have friends that have done this, born in some of the worst spots in Africa, living on the dirt, sleeping on the dirt, going days without food, and now are in the most beautiful of positions because they use the power of their mind. We are not saying you can sit there and meditate and all of a sudden manifest and attract something within a day that is in complete opposition of what you've been in. But what I'm expressing is that you can use the power of imagination, of creativity, of ability to tap into something beyond the current environment to start to get you to make movement, even if it's just in your mind. And then you start to make changes. You need to go outside of the pattern so that you can actually observe it, so that you have the desire to change it. If you wake up every day and you still think and do the same thing, but you're dreaming or even visualizing of change, nothing will happen. You must take action. Universe loves speed. It responds to itself through vibrational movement. Thought is a vibration, action is a vibration, but just thinking it isn't going to change it. You have to begin to create. You are here in the physical body with this magnificent mechanism stuck here, right? Our brain mind matrix. Use it. Don't doubt yourself. I'm going to say, I don't care what your present condition is. You have the ability to find a way out of it and into something greater than what it is. And I have a quote and a saying in the book, and I have so many people that live by this. Do not let the story of what has been be the reasoning for what it is not. And I want you to think about that. That is going back to holding the story, being limited, and using it as a weight, using it as a mechanism, a negative mechanism to keep you where you are. You don't have to
Yeah,
stay here. You don't
yeah,
have to stay here. One step at a time, one day can start, as we said, meditating, journaling, taking a walk, just moving your body. Even if you're in an environment that, okay, maybe it's not quite safe to go out and you can't, power walk down to the street. Okay, do it in your bathroom, do it in your bedroom, do it in your bed. I don't care. Begin to shift the existing pattern, and you will start to feel your capabilities. And that is how you begin to really enact change in your life.
yeah, wonderful. Sister Gracie Vincent says she's loving the program.
Good.
It's all about love. It's
That's
all
it.
about love. It's all about love.
Yeah.
So I said earlier, Laura, that I wanted to focus on the subconscious a bit. And the reason why I want to do that is because I don't think that people realize and recognize how powerful the subconscious
Yeah.
mind is. We think sometimes that we are doing something consciously, not realizing it's the subconscious that is actually doing it. And I want to quickly share a practical example. Imagine that you're coming home in afternoon traffic and you have the children in the back. There's three of them in the back. And you're on the phone with their mom or somebody from
Whoops. Froze up a little bit for a
the
second.
office. Come on, right.
There you go.
So you get to each place that you need to get to, and you finally reach home. And when you reach home, you can't remember how you got home.
Yeah.
But what you do know is that you got home safely. Ask me to account, where did I pass? How long did I take? What did I see along the way? You can't recall. Why? Because muscle memory in the subconscious mind took you to the places where you are accustomed doing or going and help you to do the things that you are accustomed doing. So what it tells me is that if we understand the power of neuroplasticity, as I was saying before, we can understand that we have the power to change what happens in our subconscious so that consciously we can always be in a better place. And I want you to expound on that a little bit more because it is important for us to understand we have the power to do it ourselves.
Yeah. So in a way, that's what I was talking about right just before on our last segment there, that regardless of the pattern and the environment, I need for you to move because we become an algorithm. We actually are on automatic. We are
Yeah.
so programmed that we do not have the slightest awareness to the program. And I'm not talking matrix or some woo-woo science out there. I'm talking about behavioral science and the way the brain is wired. We get up and move the same way every day, from how we get dressed to making the cup of coffee to how we get in the car, grab our keys, how we interact with our pets, our loved ones. everyone at work, even the road we drive down, the way we stop at the stop sign. I mean, it is so automatic. There is no thought. Again, awareness. Awareness is the key. If you don't quite understand what that word is, continue to research it on every level that you can. Go from the great sages, the poets, the writers, go to the podcasters, go to your church leaders, go to Jesus, go to your religion. It doesn't matter. Awareness is written into all of the great philosophies of life. Without it, we are automatic. There is no connection to the present moment. Awareness equals presence in the moment. So now, for all the people listening or that will listen to this, start to pay attention to every move you make. Just do it for 5 minutes. Just do it for 5 minutes. Heard of them? Not quite sure. I saw that question there. So,
Yeah.
the subconscious, right? And the beautiful Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this all the time in all his large workshops and the meditation and what meditation does. We are programmed. We're just programmed. If you forget politics and schools and churches and all of that, we're just programmed. We came into the world and we're programmed right from the beginning. Don't touch that. Stove is hot. No, no, no. Well, that's okay. Go there. Well, if you do that, be aware this is going to happen. Well, let me tell you when I was a kid what happened. Well, what happened with your grandparents? Well, your father and I worked so hard. We're all programmed. We are not born and bred for autonomy, let alone self-actualization. This is why awareness to our potential, awareness to our brilliance and our genius is so important. And you can tell I get very passionate about this because I do not want one living soul to continue to be trapped under that weight of this is all there is. I'm on automatic. I don't even remember how I get home. What did I say yesterday? What did we fight about? What did we talk about 3 hours ago? I got to make dinner. I got to do the laundry. I've got to get the kids out the door. That needs to shift so that we become more alive in the human experience. And as you stated, the beautiful Les Brown talks about this at the end of our day when we're on the deathbed and we're getting ready to transition, and all those ghosts of could have, would have, should haves are all standing there. No one is going to say, I wish I was in a deeper pattern. I wish I was more automatic. I wish I held on to that pattern even longer of being a victim. We all know at the end of our life what we wish we had done. And what we're saying here is do not wait for tragedy and challenge and disruption. Do not wait until it's too late. Live now, live in every moment and practice the mastery of that. That is living in the moment. We're never going to arrive there. Not even the greatest of greats arrived there. Even if you want to look at Jesus on the cross and the crucifixion and all of the stories around that, he still was going through a human experience as enlightened and as empowered as he was, correct? And I'm using that as an example, a very impactful example.
Mhm.
When you are in physicality, you are here to evolve. That is the only reason we are here, to evolve emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. Read, saturate your mind and your being, your very essence with higher level information, with knowledge, both ancient and modern. Start to search out what it is to tap in to understanding that awareness helps elevate the subconscious. And the subconscious is really where the sticking points of everything are. Subconscious equals automatic. Awareness equals
Yeah.
presence in the moment.
Yeah. 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 Our producer is asking, are you familiar with the Toltecs? I am not sure.
No. So I
You've heard
have
them
heard,
before?
yes. but I'm not familiar with the teachings and any of it. I wish he could say something more on it, but I'm right. I've got it written down, so I will become familiar with it now.
Yeah, yeah. I know you're a researcher. You will go and check that out.
I will.
Yes, I don't really have it myself, Brother Dexter, but it is good to know a little bit about everything. Knowledge is something that is always available every single day. There were men and
Southern
women of
Mexico.
knowledge in southern Mexico. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Now it rings a bell. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Laura, I have a thought for today. Just hold on a minute. I want to
Hmm.
type the thought. It's thought of the week. I always try to give a thought, and I'm going to type it in as I speak. But
Okay.
the power of the thought is that I want to focus on what I believe the world really needs today.
Hmm.
Some people think that we need to have more teachers, we need to get more knowledge, we need to get more information, we need to get more involved with AI, and that in itself is a whole different ball game by itself. But I personally believe that what we need is to have more persons who are willing to become leaders, understanding the servanthood of it, and being able to express more compassion. I think compassion is lacking so much in the church,
Yeah.
in the workplace, in the schools,
I'm.
out in the
Yeah. Go ahead. Yep. You're just frozen for a quick second there. So I'll jump in on
somebody's
compassion.
having a rough day and it just rubs you the wrong way. We need
Yeah. I think that compassion can be tricky because so many people still are attached, right, to their victim story. And without authentically going through it and releasing, and as you spoke about forgiveness, how can we show up with true transparency in a compassionate way? If we are trying to be compassionate, but in the back of our mind, our subconscious, we're still angry, or we're still unforgiving, or we feel entitled on some level, that compassion is going to be lacking. And I think that's what's happening in the world. For me, I my wish and my hope is always that when we talk about anything in this world, that the person listening understands their own unique beauty, that you are wanted, that you are on purpose, that you matter. Again, I don't care what the story is from this, past this moment. You have another human being acknowledging you, even though I don't see you, or maybe we'll never speak. But I'm telling you that every single human being carries within them the opportunity to be a point of light, a point of evolution, a point of elevation for the global community. And it's really up to each person to tap in and tune into their own journey and figure out, how can I add value to the collective? And that means every single person, which is why it's so important to understand that how you think, how you feel, how you act, and how you interact has an actual physical reverberation in the current of the universal energies, or the God force, however you want to, perceive this language. We all matter. And if you're placing negativity into the collective, you're going to get negativity back. And the moment you start to understand that by genuinely feeling what a positive, happy, soulful, compassionate, thoughtful life is, that's all you want to give. And that's all you want for someone else. Now you have more people interacting from that place. So I really think compassion, again, it's all an inside journey. Someone that has not forgiven does not know what true compassion is up until that point of forgiveness.
Good evening, Laura. I
Hi.
am Dexter
Hi,
Honore.
Dexter.
I am the one in the background. I am the producer.
Hi.
Brother Andy just got disconnected for a moment. I realize he may be back, probably working on his audio.
Wonderful.
I must say that I'm sitting in the studio and I'm listening to the discussion, and the thoughts that you're sharing there, they're just resonating within my mind. And
Right.
I can't help but think how pertinent it is. And you mentioned the idea of, the power of changing the mind.
Mhm.
We have that power within ourselves. But what I have come to realize is that there are so many people who lack that confidence.
Yes. And this is why I always say suspend it. Just put it over to the side. If you lack the confidence, I want you to go forward with it anyways. I want you to exercise, authorize that part of you. So even if you're scared, even if you're in fear, even if you're in doubt, even if you lack that confidence, I want you to put it aside and I want you to just try it on. How does it feel to feel empowered? How does it feel to feel needed? How does it feel to know that my choices actually have impact on the greater good? Suspend the story, suspend the doubt, suspend the lack of confidence, and move as if you were in that position already. Practice that every opportunity you can. And I guarantee you, you will become a more confident, more assured, more empowered human being because none of us are always 100% on top of our game. None of us are 100% confident and just aligned, with the God every single moment. We all are under the challenge of the human condition. But I do this every day. I practice. I run the J3 formula every day of my life. What am I aware of? What am I willing to do about it? Where is my accountability? I go into critical thinking. I take the emotionality out of it, meaning the charge of the reaction, and I go into positive intelligence. I think about my mindset framework. How am I thinking and how is it making me feel? And how can I move from negative to neutral? Now I go into energy, and boy, do I want to go into that positive realm, that positive environment as often as I can. And the only way I can do that is by suspending the doubt, the fear, the insecurity, the lack of confidence, releasing the story, forgiving myself for holding on to it, blocking myself from my greatness, and I carry on in my day. And I do this every day of my life.
Thank you so much, Laura. This past 2 minutes was just awesome.
You're
Brother
welcome.
Andy is back in the studio, so I'm going to turn
Thank
over
you.
to him.
Hi,
I
Andy.
am having some issues with my internet. Yeah, at the last minute here, it's like, wow. Okay, so the thought that I want to share, which is the thought for the week, is the world does not need more scholars with a heart of compassion. The world does not need more scholars or professors. It needs more servant leaders with a heart of compassion. This is my firm belief. And in every aspect, every walk of life, we need leaders who understand the power of servanthood with compassion. More of that in the world, and we can have a greater impact on the lives of people and our loved ones whom we deal with on a day-to-day basis. We just have 1 minute to go, and we want to thank Laura so much. Sister
Thank
Gracie
you.
said amen for her expertise and her heartfelt compassion in terms of the value that you have shared with us, Laura. It was so wonderful to have you on. And I would like to ask Brother Dexter to put your information now in the chat so that folks realize that they can reach out to you via your website, your Facebook, or your LinkedIn profile and contact
Mhm.
with you and let you know that they were on this show, this episode, and they need to get a follow up. They need to ask you questions, seek your expertise,
Absolutely.
seek your advice with regards to how they can deal with their challenges with depression, family members, friends, loved ones, work, church members. It does not matter. We're going to ask them to put that
And really,
information in the chat.
thank you.
Any closing words before we leave, Laura?
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that you can go on Amazon now. The book is up on Amazon and you can read it and you can reach out to me. I dialogue and I am in touch with readership all over the world. I want to thank you for the work you do. And as I was saying before, when we authorize our own brilliance, we now get to, as individuals, really become in service to the greater good. And this is what we want. If we all are concerned with a compassionate heart for the greater good, we'd have a much different world. And so let's continue to really work on elevating that philosophy as best we can.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Andy.
thank you all our wonderful people and Brother Dexter in the background, our producer.
Yeah,
You are so welcome. Your wonderful spirit and your expertise, Laura. It has been amazing sharing this time with you. And I know our people have been blessed and they have been saturated with so much positive, valuable content. So
wonderful. Thank you.
until next time, this is Andy and our guest, Laura Brennan Ballett, saying, Godspeed to everyone. Please be good to yourselves, your family, friends, and loved ones. And we'll see you next time on Breaking Out of Depression. Bye for now. We love
Bye.
you. Godspeed,
Love
everyone.
you.
Bye. Love you too. Yeah.